Cause and effect. A few years ago, I would say, when was it? 10 years ago, had my first major epiphany, like a moment of clarity. And after the epiphany, the next day, I was just filled with this knowing, this understanding. I remember getting up the next day, I had this massive expansion in my chest and this communication with divinity and this feeling of God's presence. And I'm not talking in a religious sense. I've no idea what God is. I've no idea what, you know, I suppose what I'm saying is I'm not talking about dogma. I'm just talking about a feeling of omniscience, of omnipresence, of omniscience, of something all-knowing, something all-encompassing, and this feeling that I'm a part of that we're all a part of it, that we're all connected. And of course science tells us this all the time, everything is connected. Leonardo da Vinci said it, you know, hundreds of years ago, when a bird lands in a tree, the whole world changes because everything affects everything. So after this major epiphany, after this moment of clarity, I had this understanding of reciprocal response. I suddenly knew how the universe worked, and how to create whatever you wanted to create, whenever you wanted to create it. And it was all to do with service. It's always all to do with cause and effect. And I was, you know, I wanted to tell everybody, of course, because I wanted to tell my family, I wanted to tell my friends, I wanted to share the secret and say to people, it's so simple. It's so simple. Just serve, just help people, just keep putting stuff out there. And not in a kind of corny Christian way, not in a kind of trying to sell a Bible. It didn't connect itself to anything like that. You could connect to it through that. That was like a portal to it, but it didn't connect to anything like that. It was something much bigger. And I wrote a book about it, just a very small book, and for quite a few years me and Sharon used to put this book out for free. It was called The Formula. We had it printed and we put it out, we put thousands of copies out there. We wanted to share it with people, but it was very simple. It was the secret to perpetual motion. But it was so simple that most people I told it to just kind of got up and walked away as though nothing had happened. And lots of them thought I'd lost my marbles. You know, people thought I'd become a tree hugger, and I have hugged a few trees, I must admit. The Celts said that trees, especially oak trees, were the gateways to new realities, to different realities. So you can meditate and you can talk to God through trees. So I did this book called The Formula, and the formula was basically, there's not a lot to say really. You could write it on the back of a stamp. Service, that's what it was about. It was just talking about the nature of service, and it was kind of saying that there is this above and below and around our normal economy is the divine economy, and everything you put out would return. Everything, it would return. Your karma, what you do, what you say, what you think, you are carrying it around in your skin. Even your skin is speaking a testimony against you. Even your skin is speaking a testimony for you. So everything you do is recorded, and everything you do will return. And it was so this kind of simple understanding of the reciprocal response, or of cause and effect, or of perpetual motion. In other words, something that once you started it, it found its own motion, was so simple but so difficult for people to get, because obviously people are often very cynical, and they're always looking for brass feet. They're always looking for, you know, they're always kind of looking for the catch, and there was no catch. He was just saying whatever you do keeps coming back to you, keeps returning to you. Everything you do is planted in fertile soil. And that whether you did good, bad or indifferent, it would come back to you. The exciting thing about that for me was that, you know, it kind of placed you at the helm. It placed you in charge of your own reality, of your own universe. If I wanted more of something, then I just did more and put more out there. You know, so if I was a farmer that wanted to, you know, reap 10 fields of crop, then I needed to plant seeds in 10 fields of crop. I couldn't plant it into one field and expect to get a return of 10. And I couldn't, expect to plant apples and get bananas. If I plant apple seeds, I'll get apples. If I plant deadly nightshade, I'll get deadly nightshade. So it's basically this. What I intuited through this gift I got from this epiphany was that whatever you put out there will return, even if it doesn't seem like it will, even if it seems like it's where you're placing it isn't going to return. It will. It has to return. And the main thing I got from it was that there were opportunities every single day, every minute of every single day, to plant good seeds, to plant stuff that will come back. But I might plant a seed with you, say if you're John or Pete or Susan, I might plant a seed with you, but that may return from somewhere completely different. So I spoke to a guy on a train once and I had 5 minutes with him and inspired him about something. He was troubled about something, and I spent 5 minutes with him. And 10 years later, one of his friends spent £1,200 to come on a masterclass with me. So it was nothing to do with him specifically. I didn't get a return from that guy. I didn't even think about that guy again. I just served him selflessly and moved on. That was my duty, that was my job. But 10 years later, this guy comes on the course and I said, "Oh, it's really nice to meet you. How did you find out about my course?" And he tells me about this meeting. And so the course comes directly from that. That kind of thing happens all the time. The exciting thing is when you understand it, when you understand that everything you think and say and do is like planting seeds, it just makes you want to think and say and do good things. It makes you want to look around every single day for opportunities to serve people, opportunities to help people, opportunities to give selflessly. And there are obviously the different levels of this. I try to do my 95% of my giving. I try to do it anonymously. I try to do it quietly. I try to do I just do in my mind, in my prayer and in my meditation. And I have lots of things in place, lots of divine pipelines where I'm serving anonymously all the time, because I know how powerful it is. So again, we think it's a spiritual or a religious thing, because obviously all the Bibles concur on this. All the Bibles say that, when you throw your bread out into the waters, it will come back tenfold. They all tell you that, but for some reason people distrust religion or distrust the spiritual word. But science tells us exactly the same, that, for every cause there will be an effect. There has to be an effect. In old Celtic folklore, they called it the weird, W-Y-R-D, and they didn't have any word for the past, the present or the future. They just had things done, which is the now, things done, which is the past, things doing, and things owed. So what we did fell automatically into the weird or into karma, and then later on we saw them again. So like everything we did was like planting a seed in a field, and later on we, in the future we would see the harvest of that. And of course it falls into everybody else's karma, which is where it can get quite complicated, because our karma becomes a part of everyone else's karma. But all we can do, we can't get too concerned about that. All we can do is make sure that we plant good seeds. We discipline ourselves. We master ourselves, we become sovereigns over ourselves, so we have the discipline to only plant good seeds every single day. Every minute of every day we've got the chance to do it. Every opportunity, there are so many opportunities all the time, just to plant seeds, just to secure our own future, if you like. Charles Handy called this proper selfishness, and it's when we did things for other people that were naturally good for us. There's a great book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think it's Dale Carnegie. It's one of the best books probably ever written on this subject, and it's really a book about how to get everything you want from other people by giving them everything they want. And it's a fantastic book. It's an unfortunate title. It's a bit of an old-fashioned title, and it sounds a little bit contrived, but it's actually not. It's all about kindness, generosity, virtue. It's all about selflessly serving people But of course what happens is, if we're connected to Logos, if we're connected to our source, we know this is true. We know that what we give out must return. We don't even think about it. We don't think, when will that come back? I'm owed something. I did this for her, or I did this for him, and I never got anything back. We don't think like that. We don't stand in front of somebody and then think, if I do this, I'll get that back. We just do it for the pure goodness of it. We do it from a frequency of love. And love is a frequency, it's not an emotion. So we find this frequency of love and we do something, and we know it's going to come back, but of course we don't look for it. And if we're really smart, and if we're doing it properly, we'll have done it so many times, we'll be serving so many people, we'll be planting so many seeds that it's impossible to remember where you planted the seed and when it's going to come back. But you will be having an abundance coming back to you all the time. There will be abundance. It will just keep returning to you. And it's because you've placed your investment into the weird, and that will return to you again. It's just really, it's as reliable as putting money in the bank. But you can break it. This is where the problem comes. You can break it. I spoke to a girl once who said to me, how do you deal with people who do not reciprocate your service? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, I've got this friend who I've really helped. I've done everything for this friend. I've really looked after her. I've done everything. I've really put myself out for her, but she's given me nothing back at all. And she's so ungrateful, and she's so, she's so greedy. She just never reciprocates. I get nothing. I don't even get a thank you. And I said, well, the reason, because I was talking about karma and about what you put out and will come back, and she didn't believe it. She just flatly said, I don't believe it. And I said, the problem was you didn't give selflessly. You bartered. And she said, that's not true. I said, if it's not true, why are you so disappointed in your friend? If you don't expect anything from her, why are you so angry? Why are you so disappointed? You're disappointed because you gave something, and maybe in the moment that you gave it for the right reasons, but then suddenly you expected thanks, suddenly you expected reciprocation, suddenly you expected her to help you when you were struggling. I said, that's expectation. So sometimes we can plant the right seeds and we can do the right things for all the right reasons, but later on we recede on it. We suddenly say, oh, I had another friend say to me, I was talking about this with a group of students, and I was talking about the karmic response, and he actually stepped out of the circle of the group and said, I don't believe that. I don't believe that, because I said, you'll get what you put out. What you put out, you'll get back. And he said, I don't believe it. And I said, why don't you believe it? And he said, because I have a friend, he said, who I helped set up a business. He said, I helped him a lot. And he said, and his business has become huge. He said, it's multinational, and it turns over millions of pounds. He said, and that person has never ever helped me. In fact, he said, I went to him when I was struggling and I asked him for help and he didn't help me. So he said, it doesn't work. And I said, that's because you didn't do it properly. I said, you bartered. I said, there's a big difference between selfless service and bartering. I said, I'm sure that when you served this person, I'm sure that you did it for the right reasons and that you did it from a selfless place, because that's the kind of person he is, and that I'm sure you did it for the right reasons. But as you saw him becoming successful, that selfless service suddenly turned into a barter. Suddenly you're expecting a return from your friend, you're expecting reciprocation. I said, and the way the weird works, the way the karma works, the way cause and effect works, is that you will put it into the ground and it will come back, but not necessarily from the person you're giving it to. You never know where it's going to come back from, and that's part of the excitement with it. So I said, and he said exactly the same thing. He said, because I said to him, you didn't really serve him selflessly, you bartered. And he goes, that's not true, I expected nothing back. And I said, then why are you angry? Why are you angry? Because he should have at least returned the favour. So I said, so you were expecting something back. You didn't do it selflessly. I said, you know when you've done it selflessly because you don't even expect gratitude. I quite often find myself falling into that same trap. I've got students and even family that I've helped, that I've done stuff for, and then it's not so much when they're not grateful, because I can live with that. I don't look for gratitude, but it's when they attack you, which often happens when you're spiritually developing. People are affronted by the altitude that you're going to, and they quite often attack you. It's their way of coping. And I often find myself angry at that, thinking, why is this person attacking me? And of course it's exactly the same again. I'm expecting something from them, and I shouldn't expect anything. And I should understand that sometimes when you pull a bird out of the mouth of a cat, the bird might bite you because it doesn't know what it's doing. You're trying to save it, but to you, you're just, to this cat, you're just to this bird, you're just a bigger cat. So sometimes when you try and help people, and you try and save them, you try and serve them, they do attack you. So I shouldn't even expect, I shouldn't even be surprised when people attack, because I understand it. So it's no expectation. And again, there's two things. One, if there's any expectation, if you're feeling disappointed, so if you're walking out of a shop and you open the door for somebody and you let them through, and they don't even have the common courtesy to say thank you, and you're angry at that, it's because you entered into a barter and it didn't work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So when you're angry that they didn't reciprocate with a thank you, it's because you expected something. It wasn't selfless service, it was conditions, it was conditional love. And we need to do this from unconditional love. That's how the equation works. So I noticed this in myself when I was younger. So then I thought, right, what I'll do is I'm just going to open the door for everybody, and I'm not going to even look for a thank you. And the more I didn't look for a thank you, of course, the more I got it. And sometimes I didn't get a thank you, but that didn't bother me either. Because sometimes it wasn't because people were rude, it's because they were somewhere else. They weren't thinking, they were distant. Maybe they were troubled. Maybe they'd got worried. Who knows? I didn't look for a thank you. And I also made it a habit of serving so many people, letters, emails, whichever way it came in. I served so many people that I couldn't remember who I'd served. So there was no way I was going to be angry that they didn't reciprocate, because I didn't even know who they were. I sometimes meet people who I'd written to 10 years ago who have come on the course, and I couldn't remember them. And it's because you're doing it so often. So one of the things it says in the New Testament, which I really love, it's a book of philosophy. Don't think about it as religion, but it's a book of philosophy. It says, it talks about casting our bread into the water and it coming back tenfold. But it also says that if you serve a prisoner, you serve God. And what that means is, it means if you serve somebody that's difficult, someone that's a prisoner of their anger, maybe sometimes they're literally a prisoner, but maybe they're a prisoner of their anger, a prisoner of their jealousy, they're a prisoner of their ignorance. If you serve people that are difficult, you hit a rich vein. In other words, what you give out will come back tenfold, because we all know it's easy to serve people that are palatable, people that are nice, people that are, people that are lovely. It's easy to serve them. We can serve them all day long. But if you can serve difficult people, if you can serve your critics, if you can serve the people that attack you, if you can serve the people that don't like you, and maybe perhaps not literally, maybe you don't, it doesn't mean someone's criticising me, I have to go and have a cup of coffee with them and try and win them over. It just means that when I go into my meditation, I will find these people in my meditation, and I'll embrace them, and I will find love. No matter how difficult that will be, I will find love. And I will ask God, or I'll ask the Akashic field, or I'll ask divinity, whatever it is you want to call it, the collective unconscious, to bring love to this person. So when you serve people that are difficult, you hit a rich vein. And if you serve anonymously, you also find the most potent return, the most profitable return for your energy. So every time you serve anonymously, it has more power. Again, in the New Testament, it talks about the hypocrites on the street corner. It says when they pray in public and they brag about their prayer and they do charitable deeds, but they brag about their charitable deeds, that is their reward. So everything that they do for egoic return is going to be a very limited return. But if you can serve people anonymously, and again this is what they call not letting the right hand see what the left hand is doing, it means that only you and your maker know who you are serving and how you are serving. If you can do it anonymously, you click into tremendous power, a tremendous amount of return. So some service obviously needs an infrastructure, so it needs to be public. Sometimes you can't avoid that. But the majority of your service, if you're smart, should be below the surface. It should be invisible. It should be something that not even your wife or your friends know about. And it's certainly not something I'm going to talk about on here, because if I talk to you about what I do, then it's no longer private. It's something that needs to be completely anonymous. And you can find ways of doing that. You can find ways of serving people so that they don't know it's you that serve them, and that nobody knows it's you that served them, but you're serving them. There's real power there. And it's not just that it's real power, but the anonymous service brings the greatest return. In the Kabbalah it says, never tell anybody your good deeds, ever, but don't worry, because everybody will eventually find out, but they won't find out from you. And because they don't find out from you, it's all the more powerful. So it's really, really important, if you want to work this properly, to expect no return, and any kind of feeling of anger or animosity or any kind of feelings of privilege or expectation is a sign that you've not served. It's a sign that you've bartered. And there is a place in this world for bartering. That's an exchange of energy. Again, I've mentioned on one of the podcasts a guy called Chip Connolly, and he said that the exchange of money is not the most valuable exchange of energy, because it's an exchange of energy, but it's not the best exchange of energy. The best exchange of energy is when you just selflessly serve, but knowing, again, if you understand the universal dynamic, that will return. It will come back to you.